What's going on, guys? Well kept Joey and the lads here. Who do we have, and what did you do?
Cody, I got 33rd at Indianapolis Regionals last weekend.
Nice. And what did you play?
I played Striker Maliss, as you can see here.
Cool. Let's get into it.
Yeah, going main deck first. 40 card main deck. Maliss, we maxed out on main deck names and played one Dotscaper as well. Dotscaper, you kind of just need this card to play around like multiple hand trap hands from your opponent. It's basically functioning as a fourth Maliss name, and there's a lot of lines like through Nibiru where Dotscaper is actually really important. I know a lot of people like to say that this is like Maliss on training wheels, or you don't need this card, or it's a brick, but I disagree. It came up a lot over the weekend, and like with Nightmare Griffin in the list too, sometimes you can just like pitch this off Nightmare Griffin and just go infinite value. So it's really nice in those cases as well. I was seeing a few too many Maliss names, so one of the changes that we'll go over after the main deck talk is cutting Cat to 2. But I was pretty much happy with how many times I saw Maliss cards over the weekend. I think I bricked, by bricked I mean like opening no Maliss names maybe twice out of 9 rounds.
Nice.
So also have 3 field spell with honorary 4th field spell Gold Shark. You're almost always banishing a Maliss name off of it, so it's basically just field spell. 3 Allure of Darkness. This card is big broken and wins games kind of on its own a lot of the time. And something I wanted to mention about Allure as well is there's kind of like a counter meta going on with people's usage of Lancia. People are usually waiting for main phase now to drop Lancia because they've gotten accustomed to Maliss players siding out Allures for games 2 and 3. But if you keep Allures in, you can punish that, which is really nice. And similarly, if you're playing like Talons or Thrust, you can punish Lancia in those cases as well really hard. 3 Maliss Traps, that rounds out the lineup of Maliss cards. Don't really need to discuss the Maliss Traps. You're always going to play them. Bestials, I played 5. I thought this number was fine. In testing, I went up to as many as 6, I believe, playing 3 Druids and 2 Baldrake, but I saw just a few too many Bestials. And also before the regional, I had 3 Druids, 1 Baldrake, but the name variety did actually come up a couple of times where I drew, like, I have this Ultra that signified it was the third Druid before, and I drew like this a lot over the weekend. So you want as many of your cards to be as live as possible, like at all times, to be able to play as much Yu-Gi-Oh as possible. So having the name variety is valuable in that case. The like slight spice is striker cards. These cards are phenomenal, amazing, and I love them, and I want to play more of them, and I will be playing more of them. Non-engine, we're just on 3 Shifter, 3 Ash, 3 Impulse, as well as Called By and Talents. Kind of all self-explanatory cards. This is sort of for side pattern reasons as well. Like, these are just generically very strong cards. Called By is always doing something going first or second, and Talents is always doing something going second. It's not always doing something going first, but they're strong cards. I was happy with them being in the main deck. And that is our 40 card list.
Cool. So before we go on, a couple questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you wanted to make some changes to the main deck. What were those specifically?
I want to bump up to 42 cards basically to play a 3rd engage, and I also want to play Malice and Underground at 3 instead of Cat at 3. This card's more flexible than Cat, so it's more likely to be live than Cat is.
Gotcha.
So going with that same idea of like, you want your cards to be live at all times and doing things.
For sure.
Going to extra deck, the link ones, I'll say as well, every single card in the extra deck came up multiple times over the weekend. Even Lingeribo, like I played against Mitsurugi Ryzeal. This pinned their trap card. I played against Traptrix randomly, and this came up, of course. It came up against Memento as well. Like, shockingly, Lingeribo's just like kind of a guy. It's also useful just to clear your main monster zone so striker cards are live, which is usually what you're using it for. And of course, Decoder and Kukipari go without saying. Like, you have to play those cards based on the cards we're playing in the main deck. Kind of your generic like utility links, IP Haggard and Dark. Dark Battle Phase Crash I think came up one time over the regional, but that's something that happens quite often. And there's a lot of good like dark monsters that you can steal with Dark as well, like Opposing Bestials. Ame no is another card. Yeah. Like, even Maliss mirrors as well. Like, if you can get Dark to resolve, you probably just win that mirror match. And there's lots of good ways to do that. IP is probably the one I use the least out of everything, but into, like, weird Fuelos lines, into Meowl's lines, even into Lancia sometimes, you make IP and you're chilling. Then removal, SP, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus. You need all 3 of these cards in your list somewhere, because there's so many spell cards that you don't want to see in the format. Cerberus actually outed a Chaos Hunter in my round 1, which was really valuable. These also fold into a battle queue really freely. And then SP is kind of like an honorary Maliss card at this point. Just like banishing a Maliss Link from Grave and then summoning it back is really strong. 3 Maliss Links, of course. And then Access Code, Griffin, a battle queue, also of course. I made a battle queue more this weekend than I had like ever before. I want to say I ended on it like 5, 6, maybe 7 times. And I also went into this to out the second Chaos Hunter that Cerberus outed after the first one. So like my opponent had 2 Chaos Hunter in hand, and Cerberus into Abao actually outed that board completely, which was nice. So, yeah, cool. Extra deck, can't change a thing about it. Like, every single one of these cards is, like, mandatory to play.
Gotcha.
So, going into extra deck, got 3 Xyz Encore, which I think is just the best breaker into Ryzeal. It works with Shifter, it's turn neutral, so you can use it going first or going second. And it just, like, completely outs the card without any chance of responding at all. Like, they can't even Judgment this card, so it's really, really helpful. 3 cross out, you have to play it. I went with 2 Book of Eclipse. I want to play 3 of this card as well, which is the other change I want to make, and why I want to like change around the main deck count so that I have 2 extra side deck slots, basically. So then we could play 3 Eclipse inside. But this card overperformed. Like, this was very, very good into basically every matchup I sided it in for. Like, I played 3 Ryzeal. It came up in all 3 matches. It came up against Blue Eyes. I believe it came up against Memento as well. So I was really happy with Eclipse all weekend. Like, it just performed. Thrust package. Yeah, these are just generically good cards, especially with striker cards. You want Thrust in your list somewhere. It just synergizes so well because it essentially just gives you 2 spells in grave for free. And then Storm and Duster. This hits Blue Eyes. It also hits Maliss. Like, the non-engine Maliss players are playing now are more back row oriented. Like, you're looking at Metaltronus, Solemn Strikes, like maybe even Book of Eclipse, or maybe they're setting their impulses as well. And then it also forces 06 and MTP, which forces them into Talents and Thrust, which is nice as well. So synergy with the striker cards, you're kind of going for board breaks as much as possible. Last 3 of the side deck, of course, Lancia. Both as a cross-out target and just for, you know, the Maliss mirror as well.
Sweet. So I guess one question about the side deck and sort of the main deck.
Yeah.
I noticed there was no Metaltronus. What was your reasoning for that?
In testing, I did have Nibiru in the main deck, which served as my Metaltronus target for Detonator. That card has started to feel a lot worse as Maliss players are learning how to play around Nibiru very, very well now. Like, I personally got Nibiru'd probably like 5, 6 times over the event, and I only lost to it 1 time because of some like chicanery that had happened. So I didn't really want to play Nibiru because it was feeling like a weaker card overall. And because the extra deck is so tight, you don't have room for a Metaltronus target in the extra deck at that point. Like, if I had taken any of these cards out, I probably lost a game that I didn't need to. So there's just not a target for Metaltronus into Ryzeal, but the slot mainly exists for Ryzeal. So I would rather play Book of Eclipse, which will always do something into Ryzeal and also has application into other builds as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, did you have any shout-outs that you wanted to give?
Oh yeah, shout-outs to all the homies, Brandon holding the camera, Dustin and Nick who are behind me doing their deck profiles because they also topped this weekend. Shout-outs to Eric for driving us down there. Shout-outs to Legend Sports and Games, who I always play with all the time. My sous chef, Matt, asked me to give him a shout-out because he's a big nerd and thinks he had any influence on me playing this deck at all.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Cody.
Thank
Well
you.
kept, Joey and the lads, signing out.
Take care.